Welcome back to the Crypto Channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin has officially confirmed this massive bearish divergence on the larger timeframes as the price is now retesting this critical level of support in the short term, while BlackRock is now dumping hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin on the market, alongside also dumping hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Ethereum on the market, causing Ethereum to continue to struggle underneath this massive area of resistance. So I'll be talking about all of that and so much more later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, just before taking a look at the Bitcoin and crypto charts today, we need to talk about the Bitcoin news today because we now have the numbers for Monday for the Bitcoin ETFs, and we did see another net outflow on Monday of over $323 million US. And the vast majority of this net outflow for Monday was just from the BlackRock Bitcoin ETF. As we could see, the BlackRock Bitcoin ETF alone had almost $300 million in outflows, around $292 million US, leaving the BlackRock Bitcoin ETF just on Monday. And in case you're new to all of this and you don't know how this works, basically these outflows are caused by investors that were holding the ETF shares, so IBIT in this case, the BlackRock Bitcoin ETF shares, and then they essentially sell their shares, and essentially what that means is BlackRock in this case, the ETF provider, has to sell Bitcoin that was backing the Bitcoin ETFs in order to basically pay out the outflows to keep the ETF shares tracking the price of Bitcoin. And so in other words, when we see inflows, that money is coming in from other investors towards the ETF providers like BlackRock, Fidelity, and then the ETF providers like BlackRock, Fidelity use that money to buy Bitcoin in the case of inflows, and then once again in the case of outflows it's the exact opposite. BlackRock essentially sells Bitcoin to pay out these outflows to the investors. And so obviously over the weekend we had no trading for the Bitcoin ETFs because the stock market's closed over the weekend, and of course this is what I talked about in the short term just near the end of last week. A couple of days ago I said that maybe over the weekend we see a little bit of a short-term bounce, a bit of a relief considering we're running into this key level of support here. But like I warned about just a couple of days ago, maybe in the new week when the stock market opens back up again, we may end up seeing some more outflows. And if that's the case, expect another little bit of a drop in the new week. And obviously that's now starting to play out exactly as I talked about just a couple of days ago. And so that's the current situation with the Bitcoin ETFs, continuing to see outflows following from what we saw near the end of last week. And if we're taking a look at the Bitcoin price charts today on the weekly time frame, the super trend indicator is technically still sitting in the green, indicating a larger bull market. But on this weekly Bitcoin price chart, we've now recently just confirmed a massive bearish divergence on the weekly Bitcoin price chart, because we clearly have higher highs confirmed in the price of Bitcoin in the candle closes, and we also now have lower highs confirmed in the weekly Bitcoin RSI. And the last time we saw this play out was right here when we confirmed this bearish divergence between these two highs, and ultimately that confirmed basically near the end of 2024, and that played out over the next multiple months in the form of a pullback all the way through towards basically the end of March 2025. And so roughly around a quarter of the year was mostly in the form of a pullback, as we could see, thanks to this massive bearish divergence. And of course there were other factors like, for example, the tariff news at that time, but overall a bearish divergence is of course a bearish signal for Bitcoin. The time before this one right here was a small bearish divergence near the beginning or near the middle of 2023, I should say. Around July 2023 is when this bearish divergence confirmed, and ultimately we did see around a 2-month pullback approximately in the price of Bitcoin that basically lasted until around early to mid-September. And then of course the time before that was near the end of the 2021 bull market. We had higher highs in the price, lower highs in the RSI, and what came next was a major 2022 bear market, a 1-year bear market. But of course not every time we see a bear market, so obviously just because we're seeing this, it doesn't guarantee we're going to see what we saw in 2022 over the next 1 year. That doesn't guarantee that once again, but what it does mean is at least over the next 1 or 2 months, it is quite likely we're going to be more bearish than bullish. So at best, maybe we see a bit of a sideways consolidation bouncing around relatively sideways at best, but overall, honestly, I would not expect significant bullish price action over the next 1 or 2 months. And overall, I would expect more likely a bit more of a pullback over the next 1 or 2 months as a very likely outcome. And obviously I've been warning about this non-stop pretty much since the exact all-time high, and just over the last couple of days this is now officially officially confirmed with this latest weekly candle close here. But of course, as I've also been saying, just in the shorter term, yes, we could see little short-term bounces from key points of support along the way towards the downside. So it's not going to be a straight line towards the downside or anything like that. Expect some short-term bounces here and there on the smaller timeframes in the short term, once again bouncing from key support. But overall, when we're talking about the next 1 or 2 months, expect a bit more of a pullback as a very likely scenario. And if we're taking a look at the 3-day Bitcoin price chart, obviously we're continuing to play out the bearish crossover that I've been warning about every day for the last 1 week now on the channel here on the 3-day Bitcoin price chart. Obviously, close to a week ago now, we confirmed this bearish crossover, as I said back then, indicating more bearish momentum starting to build, which is most likely pointing towards a bit more of a pullback coming soon over the next few weeks. And obviously, over the last 1 week, this has already started to play out as I've been warning about. And so overall, on the slightly larger timeframes, these warning signals are telling us we're likely going to be in a bit more of a bearish period in the crypto market, at least for Bitcoin here, at least over the next few weeks or months, as a very likely scenario. As always, no such thing as a guarantee, but it's very likely we're going to be a bit more bearish over the next 1 or 2 months once again. But like I just said earlier, of course, we can see the occasional green day here and there bouncing from support, but just don't be fooled if we do see one of those short-term bounces while we're still seeing these major warning signals on the larger timeframes. And if we're taking a look at the daily Bitcoin price chart, obviously over the last couple of days, we perfectly bounced from my exact level of support here at around 112,000. But as of recording this video, it's looking likely we're now about to retest that level. So once again, continue to expect support at around 112,000. And we also have support at around 110,000. So really in between 110K to 112K, we'll likely still find some support there, which means even though we're seeing another little pullback here, yes, we could see potentially another bounce from around this area on the price chart just in the short term. But if the price of Bitcoin were to actually confirm a breakback below 110K to 112K, below this area of support, then in that situation, honestly, it'll be quite likely we'll drop back down towards roughly 106,000 to 107,000 as a very likely price target. But remember, only if we first confirm a break below 110K to 112K. So for now, still expect support in this area. And if we're zooming into the shorter term, taking a look at the 8-hour Bitcoin price chart, like I've been saying non-stop for over a week now on the channel, it's very clear that of course the short-term trend is still bearish. As I said in my last video, despite seeing a short-term bounce, we're technically still in a bearish trend, forming lower highs and lower lows. So don't be fooled by these short-term bounces, because technically the price structure is still pointing in the bearish direction. And if we're actually taking a quick look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, what is just now starting to appear in the immediate short term is new liquidity just below the price of Bitcoin. Basically, in the last few minutes, this has just popped up in the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, and this is appearing at around 111.8K. So just underneath 112,000 is now a likely short-term price target for the price of Bitcoin. And so this means it is quite likely we're about to retest this area of support in between 110,000 to 112,000 to most likely wipe out this liquidity, wiping out that level at around 111.8K approximately. But once again, it is still possible we could bounce within that area, maybe once we first wipe out that level of liquidity. And so overall, that is the current situation. And technically speaking, if we're still in a shorter term bearish trend and still have these major warning signals to watch out for, of course, it still makes sense to look out for short positions over long positions when we're trading Bitcoin and crypto. As always, not financial advice. You can do what you want to do with your own money, but personally in my situation, at least while this is the situation right now, showing some major warning signals, playing out bearish momentum on the price chart, it simply just makes sense, at least for me, to look out for short position opportunities. For example, if we break below a key point of support or reject from a certain point of resistance, those are possible entries that I'll be looking out for to enter a possible short position. And so if you haven't already, definitely make sure you get set up ready to go to take these trading opportunities as soon as they appear. Even if they're bearish, you can make profits along the way towards the downside. And personally, I'm taking a lot of my crypto trades over on BTNX, so I'll make sure to leave a link to BTNX below this video in the description and in the pinned comment. And if you use that link, it'll take you to this page right here where you can claim some massive trading and deposit bonuses. For example, you can claim up to $40,000 in trading bonuses. And also, if you deposit just $1,000, you get a $200 bonus into your BTNX account. It's basically free money, which you can actually use to trade over on Bitfinex. But once again, these massive bonuses here are only available if you use that first link below this video to actually make your Bitfinex account. So if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, or preparing to take the next trading opportunity, you might as well get set up ready to go using that first link below this video to take advantage of these major bonuses here. And in case you're wondering, Bitfinex is a no KYC exchange, which means you can access it from basically any country in the world without needing any KYC. But as always, check your local regulations when it comes to trading crypto. And for whatever reason, if you don't want Bitfinex as an exchange, there's also 2bit as another option out there, another exchange that I also trade on. So I'll also make sure to leave a link to 2bit below this video. And if you use that link, you can also get some massive trading and deposit bonuses over there. And there's also currently a massive $3 million trading competition happening right now over on 2bit. So if you're a good trader, you could potentially win some massive prizes here by using that link below this video to 2bit. And in case you're wondering, 2bit is also a no KYC exchange. But with that being said, taking a look at the Bitcoin dominance here on the 3-day time frame, and at least for now, the Bitcoin dominance is still holding above this major area of support, which is still not really good news for the altcoin market. And so obviously just over the last 1 or 2 days, we saw a slight little pullback in the short term in the Bitcoin dominance. And while that was happening just over the last couple of days, yes, we did see a bit of a short term bounce across a lot of the altcoin market, but a lot of people obviously thought that was the next major altcoin season officially beginning. But here on this channel, obviously I was letting you know that I'll not expect any new altcoin season or anything like that until at least we see a strong confirmed break below this area in the Bitcoin dominance, which at least for now, considering we're still holding above that strong area of support, this means that there's not currently an altcoin season in play. And in case you're new to the channel, this area of support is still sitting in between around 60.5% to 61% in the Bitcoin dominance here on the 3-day time frame. And obviously the moment we bounced from that area, that has been some bad news for the altcoin market, at least in the short term. And obviously, if we ultimately break below that area, in that situation, that'll be very bullish for the altcoin market, but that is simply not the current situation, at least not as of right now. And for those of you that are trading crypto or looking for trades in the altcoin market, essentially, if we see a continued bounce here in the Bitcoin dominance, not financial advice, but in that situation, it would make more sense to look out for short positions in the altcoin market. But if we see a break below this area of support and start dumping here, in that situation, it would make more sense to look out for long positions in the altcoin market, not financial advice. But obviously, we can see what's happening right now in the Bitcoin dominance. And if we're taking a quick look at the Bitcoin and crypto funding rates, we could see that right now, the funding rates for the most part have pretty much reset back towards more neutral levels. Obviously, we're still seeing some negative funding rates for some altcoin pairs on just some exchanges here. But overall, at least compared to a couple of days ago, most of these funding rates are relatively neutral. And obviously, that's due to the fact that we did see a bounce over the last couple of days across a lot of the crypto market. So as we're seeing this short-term bounce from these key points of support, obviously any late over leveraged short positions. So for example, if you entered a short right as we were running into major support, which is not really a good idea, not financial advice, but if you did that and basically entered a short right here with high leverage, obviously this bullish move right here might have wiped you out of that short position, which helps to move the funding rates back towards more neutral levels out of these negative territories. And so what this means is we now potentially have some more room towards the downside again. We now have more room back towards the negative direction for these funding rates, which means we may end up seeing potentially a bit more bearish price action at some point soon enough, maybe at some point in the next 1 week or so. And just before taking a look at the Ethereum price charts, we need to take a quick look at the Ethereum news today, because we now have the numbers for the Ethereum ETFs for Monday, and we can see a massive net outflow. In fact, this is not just any net outflow, this is the worst day in history for the spot Ethereum ETFs over on Wall Street. And so we can see here, we broke multiple records. First of all, we broke the record for the largest net outflow in any single day for the Ethereum ETFs. And also just the BLACKROCK ETF alone had its worst day ever, as we could see. And so essentially BLACKROCK had the largest outflow on Monday for the Ethereum ETFs, just like the Bitcoin ETFs, as I mentioned earlier in the video. But BLACKROCK here essentially sold $375 million worth of Ethereum just on Monday to basically pay out the investors that were pulling their money out of the Ethereum BLACKROCK ETF just on Monday. But overall, we could see the net outflow was over $465 million US dollars, leaving the spot Ethereum ETFs just in one single trading day. So obviously, this is going to cause some sell pressure, maybe a bit of short-term panic in the market, considering it's the worst day on record for the Ethereum ETFs. And so as Wall Street continues dumping Ethereum at a pace we've never seen in history, of course, Ethereum is still struggling underneath my exact area of resistance that I've been warning about since before we even hit this resistance, sitting in between around 3.9k to 4.1k. And obviously over the last 1 week or so, we saw a perfect rejection, multiple perfect rejections from this area. And so I'll say it once again, in case you're new to all of this, in case you're new to this channel, of course, we cannot be overly bullish right now on Ethereum while the price is sitting just underneath this very significant resistance, because while the price is underneath this area, we're at risk of seeing another major rejection from this area like we've seen many times in the past. For well over a year now, this has been very significant resistance for the price of Ethereum, causing multiple major rejections from this area. And so this is why around a week ago here on the channel, I was telling you that I'm shorting Ethereum from around 3.8k is where I entered my Ethereum short position roughly a week ago, over a week ago now on the channel. And ever since then, I've been saying I'll be looking out for short positions for the altcoin market while the Bitcoin dominance remains above this area of support, and especially while Ethereum and some major altcoins are just underneath significant resistance. Once again, this is the time you would not want to be entering long positions and ideally looking for short positions, not financial advice. But obviously during these larger pullbacks, these larger rejections from this major resistance here, of course, we can see short-term bounces just on the smaller time frames from time to time. So don't be fooled by those short-term bounces from short-term levels of support like what we saw just over the weekend, over the last couple of days, because technically speaking, we're still underneath a very significant area of resistance. And for now, I'd still expect a lot of support at around 3.3k and really just above 3.3k. So obviously more recently we did find some support at around 33.50, so expect support around that area on the price chart. And technically here on the daily Ethereum price chart, we still have a bearish divergence to watch out for, which is technically still active. So obviously the last time we saw a bearish divergence play out on the daily Ethereum price chart, we did ultimately see a pullback that played out over around 2 weeks or so, and so far this has only been around 1 week. So it's possible we continue to see a little bit more of a pullback. And like I said in my last video, even if the price were to see a bit more of a short-term bounce and create a slight little higher high above this previous high, it's possible the RSI would still be forming lower highs in that situation, just forming an even larger bearish divergence, possibly resulting in a larger pullback later on. But obviously for now, that's not happened. The current situation is we're technically still playing out this bearish divergence, still currently confirmed, but obviously still underneath very significant resistance. So overall, not looking too good for Ethereum, at least when we're talking about the next couple of weeks as a very likely scenario. And if we're taking a look at Solana on the 2-day time frame, it's a similar situation for Solana. Once again, we could see short-term bounces from time to time, but overall, we're still playing out this significant rejection from this significant area of resistance, still sitting in between around 190 to 200. And obviously, over the last 1 day, we pretty much perfectly rejected from my exact area of resistance here in the short term, in between around 167 to 170, which is where I've been saying expect resistance in that area right there. And obviously, we pretty much perfectly just rejected and started to struggle from within 167 to 170. So obviously, continue to expect some short-term resistance right there. But if the price were to actually break out back above 170, in that situation, expect a little bit more resistance at closer towards 180 before obviously this major area of resistance that I just mentioned earlier. And in terms of support, we do have some short-term support at around 155 to 156 and some major support at around 143 to 146. And overall, just expect similar price action for Solana in the shorter term as what I said for Ethereum and Bitcoin. So for example, if Bitcoin continues maybe a slight little pullback here to take out that liquidity, as I mentioned earlier, and especially if the Bitcoin dominance is still holding above this support, obviously that's not going to be very good news for Solana and a lot of the altcoins. But obviously from time to time, just in the short term during these pullbacks here, we can see little bounces along the way. And if we're taking a look at the price of XRP on the weekly time frame, obviously like I warned about over the last couple of days, we've now officially confirmed the bearish divergence on the weekly XRP price chart, with higher highs confirmed in the price in the candle closes and lower highs confirmed in the weekly XRP RSI. And the last time we confirmed a bearish divergence of this size on the weekly XRP price chart was right around here near the end of 2020, entering into early 2021. And what came next after that bearish divergence between these two highs in the price of XRP in the RSI right here was, of course, a major pullback in the price. And that pullback lasted for roughly around 3 months, as we can see right here, around 3 months, more than a 60 to 70% move towards the downside. But also during that larger pullback, we did see a major bounce during the pullback, a bounce just in the short term. And so once again, as I've been warning about all of this time here, don't be fooled by these short-term bounces, because technically speaking, the larger price structure, at least right now, is still looking bearish. Obviously, this price structure on the daily XRP price chart looks almost identical, very similar to the price structure that we saw right at the beginning of this year, in January this year. And so this is why I've been saying time and time again, I'm like a broken record here, saying time and time again every single day for quite a while now on the channel, the price structure, the larger situation for the next few weeks or possibly months is still pointing in the bearish direction. But just in the short term, from time to time, yes, we can see short-term bounces like what we just saw over the last couple of days. And as for some support and resistance to watch out for, expect some support at around $2.90 to $3, which we're currently testing as of recording this video. And we also found a bit of support right here at around $2.75. And below that, the next major area of support to watch out for is sitting in between around $2.55 to $2.62, based on previous significant resistance becoming new support. And as for short-term resistance, we'll likely find some resistance at around $3.10 to $3.20. And obviously just recently, we pretty much perfectly rejected from around $3.10. So continue to expect resistance around there. And above that, we have some major resistance at around $3.40. And if we're taking a look at the price of Chainlink on the daily time frame, it's a similar situation for Chainlink. Obviously, the larger price structure, from the moment we saw a break below around $17.50 to $18, that was a massive change in the price structure, at least when we're talking about the next few weeks or possibly the next 1 month or so. But at least the next few weeks obviously are looking more bearish than bullish in terms of the larger price structure here for the price of Chainlink. And obviously, this price structure that we're seeing right now on the daily Chainlink price chart is very similar, almost identical to what we saw right here around May entering into June this year. Once again, leading up towards the local high, we saw a major bullish move and then a bit of a sideways consolidation, holding above a key point of support, forming a lower high during that consolidation right there, as we can see in both of these circumstances. And then the moment we broke below the support line for the consolidation, that was the massive change in price structure, setting forth a major bearish trend, or at least a larger pullback for the next few weeks or possibly months. But of course, during that larger bearish trend, which basically lasted for the entire month of June, we did also see some decent bounces along the way towards the downside. But overall, the larger price structure was bearish. But once again, we can see little bounces here and there during that larger bearish movement. And as for short-term support and resistance to watch out for, expect a lot of resistance at around $17.50 to $18, and also more resistance at closer towards $20 if the price would actually get back above this area. And in terms of support, I would expect continued support at around $15.50, which is pretty much exactly where the price bounced from, as I've been talking about since before. The price perfectly bounced from that exact level. But if the price of Chainlink were to actually confirm a break, so candle closes below $15.50 and actually failing to get back above that level, in that situation, it's possible we could even see a move down towards around $13 to $13.50 as the next short-term area of support, the next major price target, if we first break below $15.50. And so that's potentially another trading opportunity waiting to happen. Once again, only if we first confirm a break below $15.50, we could possibly short the price of Chainlink from roughly $15.50 towards around $13 to $13.50. So in that area is essentially where we would profit from that movement in a short position. And obviously, I said basically the exact same thing from $17.50 to $15.50. I said if we break below $17.50, I said this before that break, if we break below $17.50, expect to move down towards $15.50 and then expect support at $15.50. So that's a trading opportunity to short Chainlink from $17.50 to $15.50 if we first confirm the break below $17.50. And obviously that perfectly played out as predicted. So if you shorted that move, you would have made a lot of easy profits in the market while a bunch of other people out there were losing money. And so I'm basically saying the exact same thing. If we first confirm a break below $15.50, expect to move down towards roughly $13.50. So that's potentially another trading opportunity, not financial advice. And remember, if you want to get set up ready to go to take these trading opportunities in the price of any crypto, check out the links below this video to those exchanges if you want to claim those massive bonuses that are only available using those links. And if you want to actually know how you can trade crypto no matter what the price is doing, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or short positions, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.